I am Lizel Angela C. Abukay from 1 and 2. In this video, I will be doing an important activity called fermentation. This is a summary of the activity. Fermentation is a process that uses microorganisms to allow chemical change in the substance. The yeast interacts with sugars in the juice from the chosen fruit to create ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide as a byproduct. Moreover, fermentation process is an anaerobic process because there is an absence of oxygen. Furthermore, fermentation helps in the production of wine and beer products. The ingredients that I will be using are 500 grams of pineapple fruit. I chose this because it is acidic and has a good fermentability. Its pH value ranges between 3 and 4, which allows the yeast to grow and can also contribute to the clearing of fruit wine. Next is 700 ml of mineral water, white sugar, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and 11 grams of instant dry yeast. The materials that I will be using should be sterilized, and by doing that, place the items in a large pan covering them fully in water. Allow the water to boil for 10 to 15 minutes and cover it with a lid. After that, let it cool down and remove the items from the water and allow it to air dry. Before anything else, I washed my hands with antibacterial soap to avoid contaminating the items being used. I wore my lab coat and observed safety protocols while doing the experiment. The first thing I did was to peel the pineapple and cut them into smaller portions. Afterwards, I placed these small portions of pineapple into the blender. And note that I didn't add water because I will be adding it later. I transferred the juice into a pan and bring it to boil for 15 seconds. I started counting when there are bubbles present at the sides. Then, after that, I place it in a wide mouth container and set it aside in a clean place to cool. After several hours, I added water, sugar, and yeast and stirred till smooth. Remember that the pineapple juice must be at room temperature to allow optimum growth of the yeast. Then, I covered the container with a cheesecloth using rubber bands to avoid insects from getting inside. I let it sit for 3 days at room temperature and I stirred the solution every 8 to 10 hours. 5 hours later, I noticed a different smell from what I made, and there was also a foamy substance formed on top of the juice. It is because the carbon dioxide is released, which was produced by the yeast after consuming the sugar. By stirring it every 8 to 10 hours for 3 days, it can help discharge some trapped carbon dioxide before transferring it to an airtight container. After 3 days, I strained the mash through 2 to 3 layers of cheesecloth and a strainer to filter out the fruit pulps as it is no longer needed. By the way, fruit wine fermentation involves enzymatic hydrolysis because the yeast produces important enzymes such as maltase and invertase to break down complex molecules into glucose, which can be fermented. In a separate container, I added 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and 50 grams of white sugar into the strained juice. I stirred it thoroughly to dissolve the sugar, and afterwards, I added it back to the strained juice and poured everything into the vessel. I used cork and airlock to begin the fermentation process. The addition of lemon juice improves the flavor so that it won't taste like vinegar, and also, the addition of sugar determines how alcoholic the wine will be at the end of the process. After 4 days, I removed the airlock and poured some liquids to another container containing 50 grams of sugar, as this serves as the food of the yeast. Again, the yeast converts these sugars into alcohol with the help of some enzymes. Moreover, I repeated the step after another 5 days and I set it aside untouched so that the yeast can continue its work. Several days later, I noticed that the juice is becoming clearer day by day, and at the same time, the bubbles were less visible. This is a good indicator that my fermentation journey is on the right track because a sediment layer is formed at the bottom. However, the water on the airlock does not show bubbles, maybe because my bottle is too big for my juice that the pressure caused by the released carbon dioxide could not suffice the bubbling effect. But I am very sure that the lid of the bottle is sealed by the cork, and I can say that because ants can't go inside. As days passed by, the floating particles gradually move downwards until they suspend at the bottom as seen in the screen. Now, I am in my final stage for my fermentation journey. As you can see, I carefully transfer the liquid into a heating pot without hitting the sediment. I let it boil for 10 minutes, then I set it aside to cool down. After that, I filtered the liquid once again using cheesecloth and transferred it into a clean bottle. Since there was no indication of spoilage, I tasted the fruit wine and I was surprised by the taste. It was a sweet yet less alcoholic flavor. It has a strong pineapple aroma and its color remained yellow. Overall, I was proud of what I made and understood the concept of fermentation.